Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Comic Call. I'm your host, Dylan Lang. What I do at the Comic Call, for those who've never seen the show before, are every week when new comics come out, new comic books, I should say, come out, I buy a bunch because I'm a comic book collector, and I bring them here and I do this show where I show you covers, artwork, tell you the creative teams, maybe a little about the story. That way it'll get you maybe interested in heading to your local comic book store and picking out the comics yourself, because first and foremost, that is why I'm doing the show. I want to get more people involved in getting more comic books, because the comic book industry is really only surviving because of all the kids growing up in the 80s, like myself, who were buying comics back then, are now old enough now they can keep buying them and having collections. We're trying to get more people involved. We're in luck right now that we're in the middle of a superhero cornucopia of movies right now that's drawing more interest to people coming in, but it's still hard to get some of those younger people in. So if you want to check out your local comic book store, it's a lot different than it was maybe 10 years ago. Actually, that probably more like 20 years ago, because I think in 10 years ago, we're still be in the 2000s. And they started changing a little bit more in the 2000s to get a bit better. But go to your local comic book store. If you don't know what your local comic book store is, just go to your search engine and type in Comic Shop Locator Service. And it'll give you, and then your zip code. Once you go to the website, it'll ask for your zip code. Type your zip code in, and it'll list all the comic book stores in your area within about a 20-mile radius. So I know of about 5 or 6 within a 20-mile radius of this house, so I've got different options, but I like to go to my comic book store, Cars, Comics, and Collectibles, which is where I buy these comics every week in Reisterstown. They just moved to their new spot, and it's absolutely brilliant, and I just got back from there with the new comics for this week. Now, this week is a 5th week, which means, the way the quirks of the schedules go, some months will have 5 Wednesdays, and when that's the case, the comic industry, they tend to make the weeks not have as much stuff in it, and then use this as like an overflow week. In most instances, but also in a lot of instances also, it's when they release the annuals, specials, stuff like that. And again, this is not everything that came out this week. Actually, 5th weeks are usually a little slow, but this week actually was surprisingly heavy for the comics, because this is your comic haul, which normally is not this big on a 5th week, but a lot of good stuff this week. One thing I may have to start cutting back. I keep saying I'm going to cut back, but for real this time I might have to. My car is undergoing some massive replacement, and we're going to need to start saving our money to buy a new one. So I may have to start cutting down immensely on the comics. So we'll see what happens. But for now, this is what we got. First we do DC, then Marvel, then Independence. DC, for those who don't know, is generally my favorite, so I always start with them. And a little interesting side bit about this book. This is Batman Creature of the Night #1, written by Kurt Busiek with art by John Paul Leon. What's interesting about this is, a while back, Kurt Busiek wrote a 4-issue miniseries called Superman's Secret Identity, which is one of the absolute best Superman stories of all time. That's not really Superman. It's a long story. You have to read it for yourself. It takes place in alternate reality with a person whose name is Clark Kent, but is not the Clark Kent of the DC universe. It has nothing to do with the DC universe. It's like the real world. But something weird happens, and he gets Superman's powers and all kinds of stuff that happens in the real world when you have a superpower thing. So Kurt Busiek decided to do it again, a kind of a sequel. This one is Batman Creature of the Night, Book 1. Some interesting artwork by John Paul Leon. So basically it is real world person who is a fan of Superman, fan of Batman, whatever, and something extraordinary happens to them that kind of turns them into that character, but is not exactly the same, because it's not a part of the DC universe proper. It's an Elseworlds for most, for all intents and purposes. But I highly recommend Superman's Secret Identity. It's fantastic, and if that's any indication, this is going to be just as fantastic. So Batman Creature of the Night #1 is out this week, so definitely check that out. Now, I'm a little disappointed and a little not disappointed about this. This is Mystic U #1. It's a 3-issue miniseries that costs $6. Now, it's bi-monthly, so you're only going to get this every 2 months. So this issue came out end of November, so the next issue won't be out till January, and then the next issue won't be out till March. So, but I'm a bit disappointed in the price point. I was hoping it would be more along the lines of, because this was also $5.99 and it is a square bound book, and I was hoping that this would be square bound also, but it is not. However, this does not have any ads, so I think that's probably where the cost comes in. So this is pure comic book. I think it's about 48 pages of pure comic, no ads, no fluff. Now the good part about it is one of my favorite characters is Zatanna right here, and it's also one of my wife's favorite characters as well. In fact, she dressed up as Zatanna one Halloween. This is a 3-issue miniseries where Zatanna goes to Magic College. So if you're a fan of Zatanna, you're a fan of Harry Potter, you're a fan of The Magicians, and what's the other? There's another story. This would probably be the best one. It's written by author Alyssa Whitney with art by Mike Norton. So it's a bunch of new characters, but you'll see some regular characters. But Zatanna is the main character, and you know it is a lot like Hogwarts, and it's a lot like Gotham Academy. That's the other one also. It's a lot like Gotham Academy also, and it's a lot like The Magicians. You know, you have trolls are your RAs and stuff like that. Your teachers are professors. You have weird things happening and cameos and stuff like that. But it is a definitely a very interesting book. I think my wife will enjoy it. I even think my daughter might even enjoy it also. So I get the price point, though I wish it was only $4.99, even though there are no ads with this. But the artwork looks nice, the story looks good, and hopefully it'll be good. I wish it was square bound, though. It probably would have been a lot more interesting. So we'll see what happens, but I'm going to pick that up, probably finish up the 3-issue miniseries. I know my wife's probably going to love it. I know my daughter will probably love it. So that's really all you really care about now, right? Next up, I have the first of 1, 2, 3, 4 DC annuals. There were a couple more that came out this week, but I don't collect those books. This book, though, has been probably the gem of the rebirth along with Superman. This is Batman. This is Batman Annual number 2. Now, for those who don't know what's been going on in Batman, Batman and Catwoman are engaged now to be married, and their story is going to continue for a while. Tom King is writing the hell out of it, doing a gorgeous job. There are 2 stories. Tom King is the writer. Lee Weeks does half the artwork, and Mike Lark does the other half. Both are gorgeous looking. One half is how Batman and Catwoman met each other and fell in love. And the last part is a possible glimpse into the future about what's going on with that. So, gorgeous artwork, gorgeous story. And I can't wait to read it because Tom King is absolutely killing it on the series. And this is such a great picture. I love this great splash page because this is a great couple. So, and then here's a little viewpoint of the future where obviously they're still together. This is a possible future. We're not guaranteeing that this is what's going to happen, but it is. And it's just a good look into something. So Batman Annual number 2, definitely worthwhile because Batman has been phenomenal since last year, basically. Another series that's been surprising is Super Sons, and they have their first annual. The reason why Super Sons is doing really well is because Peter Tomasi is the writer. On this annual, Peter Tomasi is the writer. Artwork is by Paul Pelletier. Now, what's good about this series, and Cam Smith is the anchors, is this annual is going to follow not the adventures of Robin and Superboy, but of their super pets, Crypto, Super Cow, and Bat Cow. And that's really all it is that the super pets trying to save the day, with Detective Chimp is in there as well to help them out a little bit. But you get all this, you get Streaky, you get Plastic Man Bird, and get Clayface Animal, looks like. So just a really interesting take on the super pets. So fantastic. I would highly recommend picking this up as well. I don't think I have a cover that I really love this week. Let me just check here. The Oh yeah, I do actually. Aquaman annual number 1. This is another, like with Batman annual number 2, where that is more of a possible future. This is actually where a alternate reality is going on in Aquaman's head as he's being captured, where he and Mera are married and they have children and a family, and Atlantis is huge. It's written by Philip Kennedy Johnson with art by Max Fiumara. So it is an imaginary story, but it should be really interesting. This was the last issue, the last copy that was at my comic store, so I got the last one. So apparently must be doing pretty good, because who doesn't love imaginary stories, right? So check that out. Justice League of America annual number 1. This one focuses on Lobo and Black Canary. It's written by Steve Orlando with art by Kelly Jones. So Steve Orlando draws a pretty good Lobo. So it's an adventure with Lobo and Black Canary going into outer space and saving Lobo's space dolphins. So pretty interesting look on things. I mean, Kelly Jones' artwork is fairly neat looking, and it would have been cooler if they might have been able to get Simon Bisley to do it, but Kelly Jones is a good replacement for Simon Bisley because Simon Bisley did some of the first Lobo books out there. So definitely worthwhile. Justice League of America annual number 1 is out this week too. Now, the only regular series that came out this week, and this is it. This is the only one. There's no other one that is part of the Rebirth that came out this week. Is Hal Jordan the Green Lantern Corps number 33. Now, they tend to always appear on the 5th weeks anyway, so I don't know how that works out exactly. But Robert Venditti is the writer. Breakdowns by Tom Derenick, pencilers and inks by Jack Herbert. Now, Jack Herbert's artwork could be Tom Derenick's layouts, but looks very Steve Epting-ish every once in a while, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's kind of a good thing. The artwork looks good, and hopefully maybe this will be the artwork for a while. Steve Epting is a bit better, but you can see sort of the same quality of his stuff. So that's it for DC. From Marvel, we've got three books this week. One is, I was kind of disappointed when Power Pack and Silver Sable were announced as being regular series, and so I thought we're going to be regular series, so was Darkhawk, but these are all just one-shots for the legacy that's going on in Marvel to try and get people excited and maybe vote to get them to come back. So this one is written by Chad Bowers and Chris Sims with art by Kev Walker. I always kind of liked Darkhawk. It was a very interesting character. He had a huge run in the 90s where he was almost as popular as Wolverine, and so you would have Wolverine and Darkhawk and Ghost Rider, who was also really popular at the time, all teaming up together in different teams as well, and interesting. So I always liked Darkhawk, and I was hoping that they could be back along with the Power Pack, but we'll see. Vote on it, and we'll find out for sure. This one is a regular series. Moon Knight continues. This is issue 189. This is the legacy story. Moon Knight has been written by Warren Ellis and Jeff Lemire and been doing a great job. So now it is Max Bemis' turn with art by Jason Burrows and inks by Guillermo Ortega and Jason Burrows. So we'll see if we can get, I think from what I've been looking through, this Moon Knight is more along the lines of the Marvel Moon Knight, where the Lemire and Warren Ellis were focusing more on his spiritual journey. So I guess that could be kind of cool, but you get Moon Knight in his regular costume like that. So, and finally, from their Star Wars ring, Mace Windu issue 4. I think it's usually a 6-issue miniseries, is out this week. It's written by Matt Owens with art by Denny Cohn and Edgar Salazar, with inks by Roberto Poggi and Scott Hanna. Whenever you get some new Denny Cohen artwork, it's always good, and it's Mace Windu gets his own comic. So if you've been liking the Star Wars stuff, this is worth it. Now for Independence, I talked about this a couple weeks ago when I didn't know it was going to be out, but apparently it is. John Wick number 1, written by Greg Pak, with art by Giovanni Valletta. Now I don't know exactly if this takes place as sort of like a prequel to the movies. I think it does. I think it's more along the lines of, a day in the life of John Wick. But if you are a fan of the John Wick movie series, it's well worth picking it up. the continuation of the series. It's always good to have those continuous. So see, another reason why you need to go to a comic book store if you like John Wick. There you go. What was the name of the company? Crossgen. A while back in the 90s, early 2000s actually, there was a company called Crossgen that was kind of a throwback to the old days where they had a headquarters in Florida, and the writers and artists would stay in-house, and they would work in-house, and they'd all work together, and they timed it out perfectly so that they would never be late with any issues, and still have the creative teams working on it up to a point. And then if they needed a break to get caught up, they could throw in a guest artist who happened to also be a part of the Crossgen team, and you wouldn't lose track of anything. The artwork's just a little bit different until your favorite artist came back on. Now, it included artists like Bart Sears and shoot, who else was big on that? Steve McNiven, Brandon Peterson. Who else was a good one on that one? Bart Sears. Ron Mars was one of the writers who wrote a lot of stuff up there. There's one that keeps eluding me right now that I can't think of right now. But it was some really good artists and some really good writers, and they all were coming up with new creations and new ideas, and it was sort of trying to create their own universe. Unfortunately, it sort of fell back on itself and disintegrated. But the friendships that were made there have lasted, and Bart Sears and Ron Mars and Tom Rainey, who was also part of the others, created Ominous Press. That's put through IDW, and this is their second book. They did one, Ron Mars and Tom Rainey are doing a book, I forget what it's called, that I collect also. I forget what it's called, though. This is the second one. This is Bart Sears' book, Giant Killers _0, introduction of it. It's 3 different stories. Bart Sears does the writing and art on the first one. Ron Mars, Tom Rainey do the story on the second one, and Bart Sears does the art on the third one. So, oh, it's a telephone. I was like, what was that? So this is some Bart Sears artwork. It's a brand new creations and stuff like that. So there's that one. This is the Tom Rainey, I think. Yeah, it looks like Tom Rainey. This is the Tom Rainey stuff. And then you get Bart Sears again. So you get 3 stories setting up the regular series of Giant Killers. If you liked some of that early cross-gen stuff, what was I just, his name was just in my head. Check it out. There was a lot of really good artists and writers that were part of Crossgen. It's a shame that it fell apart because it was a good company with good ideas. It's just it didn't quite survive. Next up, we have Hack Slash Resurrection number 2. I talked about my love for Hack Slash, and so I'm continuing it by getting this. It's written by Teenie Howard with art by Sealor. Hack is a killer of serial killers, and you know, it's good girl artwork. She's bisexual or lesbian or something like that, and so you get a little bit of sexiness in it because, you know, the serial killers that she handles are like the Freddys and the Friday the 13th and stuff like that. And she worked with someone by the name of Vlad, who might still be around because of this. So definitely worthwhile checking it out. Hack Slash is one of the best series. Go to your comic book store if you want to get caught up on that. There's some omnibuses out there, and then issue 2 of the new miniseries out there as well. This is my cover of the week. I love this cover. It's Black Magic number 9, excuse me, Greg Brucka and Nicola Scott. I love cats, and it just is a very easy cat thing. This is their creation. They had worked on Wonder Woman for a while, but now they came back to their creation. It's about a witch who is on the police force, dealing with supernatural crime, stuff like that. It's got sort of this non-color sort of gray shade type of thing. So it looks good, but I just think I really like this cover, and I'm calling it the cover of the week. So that's really good. The trade is out, and then there's like 3 issues that have come out after that, so you can get caught up pretty easily. A bit disappointed that Paul Cornell's not writing this, but I figured I'd stick with it. It's Vampirella number 8. Paul Cornell started the series, but maybe he'll come back after the storyline's over. We'll see. But this one's written by Jeremy Whitley with art by Andy Belanger. This is not your old school Vampirella that had the really, really, really sexy outfit. This is more along the lines of a new updated version of it for the present day, and they're also going for kind of a Mad Max vibe in this new storyline, so we'll see how long I stick with this. But this is a pretty nice cover too, Halloween, burning a pumpkin, stuff like that. But I was hoping Paul Cornell was going to be the writer on that, but he's not, so we'll see what happens if I stick around with that. Dark Arc number 3, Cullen Bunn, Juan Doe. Great story idea from Aftershock. Basically is, we all know about Noah's Ark, but that was God told Noah to pack the ark with 2 of every animal. Well, the devil told this guy to pack an ark with all the evil. So it is an ark that has evil, and they're floating around as well. And we'll see if there's going to be a confrontation soon. But the problem is these monsters don't like each other either, so it's a little bit harder to control them because they're also more powerful and vicious than animals are. So, but it's a great idea for a story, and Aftershock keeps killing it, knocking it out of the park. Manifest Destiny number 32. I've always liked alternate history. This is an alternate history book where Lewis and Clark are exploring the United States, as they did back in the 1800s before they got settled out there to see what's out there. And, they found new species of animals and Indians and stuff like that. But what if they were actually going out there to, and while they're out there, they discover supernatural creatures, and that's what Manifest Destiny is about. It's been written by Chris Dinges with art by Matthew Roberts and Tony Akins since the beginning, and it's probably going to be a book that will never have a guest artist and guest writers, and once they're done with their story, they're done. So it's a pretty interesting story. Sacagawea and Lewis and Clark are some of the main characters, and they are discovering, they're discovering all these weird things out there, new creatures, new beings, stuff like that. So it's a really interesting idea. Another Aftershock book is Fujitsu. It's written by Jai Nitz with art by Wesley St. Clair. The artwork looks a little bit different than previously seen, but it is Kung Fu style book. This one might be on the chopping block for me eventually, but for now I'm holding on to it. It looks good and interesting, and Aftershock still hasn't led me wrong on anything yet. Next up we have Betty Page number 5. This one's another one that's probably going to be on the way out soon. It's just an interesting idea. Betty Page, everyone knows as a pinup girl, but this comic has her being more of a actress, special agent type of James Bond type. So it's an interesting idea, so we'll keep up with it. It's written by David Avalone with art by Bane Wade. So again, we'll see what happens, but as of now, it's it's still an interesting idea. Betty Page as a secret agent. You just don't expect that from someone who did poses in the nude and in bikinis and stuff like that. So finally, we have Star Wars Adventures from IDW, which is more all ages Star Wars stories. The first one is written by Landry Q. Walker with art by Eric Jones. There's also Tales from the Wild Space, Mattis Makes a Stand. And so these are just little individual all ages Star Wars stories for everybody to enjoy. So I find it weird that here's the Tales from Space. IDW got the rights to this when Marvel does Star Wars. So I don't know what happens to that. So that's it for this week, and that's it for November. Next month is December. We'll see what's coming up there. Good thing for the comic book fan in your life to go to your local comic book store. They're probably going to be doing deals. My comic shop is doing deals all month long to get Christmas presents, stuff like that. So definitely check out your local comic book store. As I said, that's just a small amount of the books that came out this week. So go find something you like and have fun, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye. Read comics.